I remember the letter I got from my wife while I was in Iraq. She said she wasn't happy.
Others came home to a hero's welcome. I came home to the echo of an empty house.
I lived with my children for 8 years.
I raised them, but my wife worked.
I fought for joint custody.
I was called a murderer and an assassin in front of a judge.
Why should I miss out on raising my children just because she isn't happy?
I make $45,000 a year. She makes 40.
After taxes, child support, child care, health care, I have $18,000 a year left to live on.
I followed the rules. I went to the so-called friend of the court for some relief.
They just said, it's the law.
Then I got laid off from work. I went there again, 4 times. Showed them the paperwork. And each time they told me I was in skilled trades and it should be easy for me to find a job.
I guess they don't live in the real world. I had to pay the child support with my 401k.
10 years I saved for my retirement. She got half, and the rest got spent to keep me out of jail.
Then the money ran out. She's not happy, so now I live in poverty.
The court has no problem slapping me in jail when I can't pay my child support, but she hasn't let me see my kids for a year, and when I go in front of a judge 6 times, all she gets are warnings.
She's not happy, so now I can't see my children.
Because she's not happy, I'm a felon.
Because she is not happy, now I must go to prison.
I got called up to go to war for my country.
I got sent 7,000 miles away to bring freedom to those oppressed.
Now my country has stripped me of my children.
Now my country has forced me into poverty and servitude.
Now my country has turned me into a criminal. It has doomed me to prison.
All because she was not happy.
I don't deserve this.
Welcome to the DragonShip. here we are on this Veterans Day, and I want to say a few words. Let me bring up the panel members because I want to talk just a minute about the man in that video. The man in that video is a personal friend. We call him Pop. And what he did in that video, and you don't understand, is he's actually talked to many, many veterans and many men who've come home to that situation. He has a bag. In that little canvas bag is over 1,400 dog tags of men whose lives he saved by talking them out of that very action. And that's what prompted him and inspired him to make that video. Did you see the ribbons on his uniform? The man's fought in 3 engagements for us, wars. On this Veterans Day, I want to salute to Terrance Popp. Hey, Pop, great job. Thank you so much for your service. You're facing something that many men have faced, not only in the service, which makes it much more brutal, but also in today's society. High divorce rates, courts that treat men viciously when it comes to their ability to make a living, see their children and raise their children, and provide a good future for their children. Let me bring up the panel.
It's a very powerful video, wasn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me start off. Wow. Thank you guys for tuning in to this Veterans Day special. I myself, Glenn Laurence, is a veteran, Air Force veteran. So this hit home for me. I also have been divorced, and I've lived a lot of those struggles. And see, what's sad is in a nation that has so much freedom, dependent upon the sacrifices of men, we fail to hear their cry when it's their hour of need. When we need to be defended, they're there. But when it comes to their need, it seems like they are alone. They're battling a lot of things alone when they come home. Whether it's PTSD, whether it's an injury, losing a limb, or whether it's getting a Dear John letter saying that you're no longer wanted at home and you're being replaced. We ask so much of our service men and women, and especially our combat men. But for some reason, we don't hear their cry or assist them when they need help. Now, this is not just, only military men experience this. No, there's countless men around the world that are dealing with these same issues in the court system, trying to see their kids, paying ridiculous amount of money for child support and alimony just because the wife lost interest and moved on. And now he has to suffer and lose everything because she made a change of heart. This is the cry that many men face. And it's sad that men around the world, including our servicemen, it's something that they have to deal with. That this is something that this is a reality to them. For the month of November, we've been doing specials about men's health. We have done a special about fitness and how to maintain a healthy fitness life so you could be successful and live long and healthy. Today, we're talking about, especially for the veterans, mental health. And we want to acknowledge the struggles that our servicemen have faced. So with that, I would like to bring up the rest of the panel and have them share their stories and experiences that they have had, or the family members that they know that they have had in their life, and pay homage and respect. And maybe we could figure out a way to how we, as a community of men, could find ways to support our men and women, or especially our servicemen, while they're overseas, while they're doing the good fight, keeping us safe. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. I know this is not a regular stream, but thank you for taking your time for being here. I think it's really important, and I'm very honored to have you guys all on. So, gentlemen, how did that video, come across to you guys?
Well, I could tell you this. It's very personal to me. I watched Terrance Popp personally give this presentation, and that's the man that's in the video. So I'm very impressed by him. I spent some time with a few days with him. He's a good man, and he highlights the issues with a lot of what our veterans face. And I want to encourage our veterans, anybody that's watching this. First of all, I want to thank you, but also like you, Glenn, thank you for your service. It's unfortunate that you had to, come back to this. It did, at least there's always a bit of a silver lining, especially with the men that Terrance has saved. I believe over 1,400 now that's gone through that experience, just like you, Glenn, in that they are now red pill aware. And there's hope in becoming red pill aware. I wish our servicemen could have left red pill aware. But war is a heavy thing. You go through boot camp, your life is upside down. And in some ways, to go and get married as fast as possible right there in boot camp, it's kind of an anchor back to that society that you're leaving behind to go to hell, essentially. When I say go to hell, that's what war is. You're going to hell. And, you want to have that lifeline back to reality. And it's so much more crushing when you get that Dear John letter. Hell, there was a movie made about this back in the 50s. It was called To Hell and Back. It wasn't about the divorce, but it was about our most decorated veteran that America has, and that's Audie Murphy. He came out of World War II with scores of medals. He didn't think he was a hero. He just did what he had to do. But that man, he faced what we would call PTSD today. His first marriage that he took right out of combat only lasted 2 years. Then he married a woman that lasted the rest of his life. And, she stood by his side, even though he had some issues. They called him a womanizer, all kinds of things like that. Unfortunately, he died in a plane crash. But his legacy lived on with her, and she worked at a veterans hospital here in California. You guys aware of that? Right up until her death. And she was interviewed, and she said, he was her hero right up to the day she died. That's pretty impressive, one of our strong American heroes. Happy Veterans Day. We honor them to this day. So I just wanted to say that and realize that veterans are facing a tough time, and then to come back and have that anchor to reality yanked away from them, and then the courts not even give them a fair shake. Terrance went through quite a bit of hell because all it takes is one accusation of domestic violence anywhere in this nation, and you're driven to a court, a family court, which is not a court of where you're innocent until proven guilty. No, it is not. It is not that court. It's a court of equity, which means if the accusation is made, the court must actually accept that as if it exists in truth and protect those children. So you are essentially guilty until you can prove innocence. So that's how they made him basically a criminal. So be aware of that. That's a rough thing for a lot of veterans to face. Maybe I said too much, but wanted to get that out there.
No, Thor, that was great. And thank you for that, because I don't think a lot of people understood who he was and, what he has gone through, what drove him to actually make this video. Phil, I think you mentioned earlier that your dad was in the military as well, right?
Yes, sir, he was. My father, he flew F-4 Phantoms in Vietnam. He was a colonel in the Air Force. I traveled the world with him. He was pretty much the most alpha dude I'd ever seen in my life. I mean, and so yeah, he's a veteran. So happy Veterans Day to you, Dad. I'm glad you're still walking this planet. And it's the thing is, he had the ability to escape a lot of the traumas that a lot of the guys on the ground obviously have experienced. And he was always one of the guys, I guess. I mean, I've never been in the military, so I don't know, but I will tell you this from some of the things I've said. It was like close air support and things like that, and keeping those guys on the ground safe as much as possible. But I think when it comes to this movie right here that Terrance had done, Pop, I think that it's a reality, and the real sad part about it is there's a lot of veterans that are friggin' homeless, man. They're self-medicating with alcohol and drugs. They're just lost. They're just like floating in this world. And it's like, they've served and they've protected, and it's like we have turned our backs on them. It's a really sad situation to see. And you look at that and you see, once again, I have never been in the military. I've just been a military brat. But you see how the VA handles guys that are going through traumas like that, and you understand that, just for them to get services for those traumas is just like this. It's like, hurdle after hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. Wait, and then it's too late. And these guys are dealing with things on their own. So what do? They turn to drugs and alcohol. And that's an unfortunate thing. But I definitely want to shout my father out, and mad respect to anybody on this panel that's been in the military and served. Thank you so much. And if you're watching this stream, this is a pretty cool thing that Glenn wanted to put together. I think that more acknowledgement needs to be given to these guys that have sacrificed their time, and not only the guys, in this red pill community that we all evolve and grow in and learn from, whether it's red pill or whatever, we tend to forget about the women that sacrifice as well when their men are away, and the children that sacrifice because their fathers are away. And, so shout out to those people as well, the ladies and the families that, when their man is not present in their home, when fathers are not present, that weakens the family dynamic. And so on this Veterans Day, man, you guys just take care out there, and just thank you so much for your service, man.
Thank you, Phil. Mark Daniels.
Yes.
Now,
sir.
I'm not sure if you served in the military yet or
No,
not.
I got lucky. I missed it.
But do you know anybody, like in family, friends, that may have served, and have you seen like them, any of their struggles?
Yeah, I can go off on a tangent about this, but I'll keep it respectful. My father was in the Navy. He was fought in World War II. He was stationed in Okinawa, and he was also in the Korean War. He never said much about it. I asked him about it once, and he just said they worried more about the kamikaze pilots because they would be out on the off the shore shooting those big guns. So that was one of his biggest fears. And I don't know too much about this, but he was married before he married my mother, and he came back, and I asked him about it when I was going through a divorce, what happened to him and his first wife, and he said, and he had a child, which is my half brother, who I never knew because he passed away before I was ever born. But he came back and he said, well, I found out she was messing around on me with some other man. He said, so I just divorced her. But years later, so he experienced the Dear John deal there. He didn't get the letter. He just came back and found out. But I found out years later that after he passed away, I found letters that he had written to a lawyer. She had taken his child out to Arizona, and we were in Missouri. He'd tried to get the child back, and the kid ended up getting encephalitis, and he got the child back in a box and paid for the burial and everything. So that's all I know about it. So I know that it was difficult for him. In my personal experience, I was concerned about being drafted for the Vietnam War, which was one of the first times wars were ever publicized, or let's say brought into the living room in the homes of people back here. And the Vietnam veterans, I had two good friends that came back from Vietnam. They were older than I didn't know them until they came back. And they both self-medicated with drugs and alcohol. And that was a time in my life. I was about 15 to 20. I did a lot of heavy drinking and drugs. So I hung around with those guys. They didn't speak much about it either. One of my friends did. He was a sergeant. He talked about being in the jungle and some of the things that happened over there. And one of the reasons the Vietnam veterans, at least I believe, and I've read about from my experience, they got ostracized and treated badly because, as I said, for the first time, the war was actually brought into the living rooms of families here back in the U.S. There have always been innocent men, women, and children killed in wars. It's going on today. It's been going on the last 10 forever. But that was the first time that we ever seen it on TV. So they looked at these men as terrible men because they were killing kids in some cases. People, even though I wasn't there, I can realize we all have that in us. And there comes time when things like that have to be done. When you have a child walking up with a machine gun or a hand grenade, you have to do what you have to do. And instead of trying to have compassion for our soldiers, we actually treated them like animals, like there was something wrong with them. But as I said, these things have gone on in war for thousands of years and still go on today. Maybe it's somebody in the government that pushes a button or makes a decision. And I know I heard those drones, when they used the drones, many times innocent people were killed during those times. I think more often times than they actually got the people they were trying to kill. So that was a tough thing for the Vietnam veterans, as well as the distress of war as it is anyway. In World War II, everybody came back as a hero. I knew a lot of World War II veterans when I was growing up. It was different, but as where the Vietnam veterans didn't, they really got treated badly. Like they did not get the adoration.
Yeah, they were the first. They were the first war military guys that went to war. Troops that went to war that did not get a welcome parade.
Right.
And it kind of ever since then, it's kind of been that same thing. I mean, Desert Storm got some parades, like nothing. They got highlighted. They got acknowledged for good things. But really, our pride in our troops and our soldiers really that was Vietnam War was the point where we stopped really supporting them overall as a nation because of what people saw televised or reported. And I mean, although it hasn't been as bad as that, like soldiers haven't come back being treated publicly or by the press as bad as they were then, but we have never again treated our soldiers as well as we did before that since then. Huds. Now I know you're a younger guy. Did you ever plan on thinking about joining the service? Do you know anybody that did join the service, like growing up?
Yeah. So one thing I do want to say about this, I'd always thought about it. I think that joining service gives you the best discipline that you possibly can have. Now, not the only one, but one that comes to mind is Pop, and Pop was in the Korean War. And, I remember, and we go see his grave every single year, just kind of as like a tribute. But I remember at his funeral, I was only in like 6th grade, but I remember at his funeral, like I still have, and I hold on to empty shell casings that they have when they were shooting off at the end of it all. And I've known some people as well. One of the guys that I've worked with before, like he does, I don't remember exactly which branch he's in, but he works the same way. And, he had to cancel on me a couple times for, doing some things together because somebody had committed suicide. And that really hit me hard, especially with this video from Terrance Popp. Like, this is absolutely fantastic. Because it shows the mental anguish that you go through when you're in war. And then how are we taking care of them? We're not. We just, as a society, it's kind of like a blind eye. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist. And that's what really irks me about the whole thing. And yeah, I don't know. I've got a lot of small things, a lot of small stories, but I'm just really happy that we can at least talk about it, because nobody ever really talks about it. They just don't care. Again, blind eye. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist. And that's the biggest issue that I think we have right now when it comes to veterans. And I just want to say,
I'd like to comment on that if I could, Huds.
Go for it.
So yeah, I tried to join the service twice, and since I had childhood asthma, I couldn't. So that was my extent of my career. Back in the 80s, they wouldn't let you do such a thing. But what I wanted to make the comment on is our treatment of our veterans. I think that fundamentally, almost every American is going to say that they do respect and honor our veterans. Here's where it gets tricky, and here's where I'm going to make some political commentary. The best respect we could do is to support the men in the field and support their safe return by making good political decisions that protect Americans, protect our freedoms. They swore an oath to the Constitution, and they will do that to their death. When they return, and we've made progress with the VA, the benefits, all those things. Those are good things. Where we have fallen down completely as a society, and I don't think we will make much progress, is in the family court system. This is where veterans get destroyed and zero out and kill themselves because it is so personal. It was their lifeline to their home world. You know, Vietnam veterans, I worked with one. He was a long range recon patrol, LLRP. 68, 69 was there in the Tet Offensive. And they used to have, you know, they'd stress out. They had dark humor. They would always say when they would, rotate out and back to society, they said, I get to go back to the world, you know, or they write things on their helmet like FTW. So it was so, you know, they were so needing of a lifeline back to the States. And so when we get here, and, you know, I'm going to ask the panel this, Phil, you know, we're red pill aware. We know that young women are desired by young men. And yet female nature dictates that when they're in their fertile years, it's only so much that they have before they hit what we call the wall. That's a biological imperative. When you take their mate away from them, it doesn't take long. Their survival instincts kick in. Did you read the statistics at the end of Terrance Popp's video? You know, these guys go away. They're gone for what, a year? Is a deployment a year? You know, and
yeah,
50%,
deployments could be anywhere from like 6 months. Some like you could do short ones for 3 months, but the average length is about 6 months to a year.
Yeah, but the statistics, let's hone in on
70%.
that.
70%.
They come back. 70% come back
to a divorce. Now, here's the thing, or to some kind of. Now, what's going on here? We all know what's going on here. They're not waiting around for their man to come back. They're being driven by most of them are very young. They're very fertile. There's other men available. I mean, there's two instincts here. We're red pill aware. There's survive. There's procreate. You know, the mate's gone. And now it's survival is not in jeopardy. What's the next thing that comes up? That's correct. And therefore that takes up all their time. I mean, 70%. I mean, I believe right now that is a huge factor in that biology, that time clock that's running out, that females refuse to acknowledge. That is a short window in which to procreate, has to be a factor in what's going on here. Now, that being said, did you look at the statistics for after, what was it, 5 years? 90%.
5 years.
5 years. That's huge. Well, we love
90%.
everywhere else.
That's disgusting.
That's when they stuck it out. The guy comes back. He's got a little bit of issues because anger, whatever it is, stress, you know, that's not going to work well, you know, that distance. So I see it working against a female's biology to even do this. It'd be very good to be strong, or at least have a well-established relationship to even consider. Unfortunately, I think it'd do much better if the court system was actually one that was designed to promote reconciliation. It is absolutely, that entire machine is not designed for reconciliation. It is designed to split families apart, siphon off money to the attorneys involved, create more and more of these equity courts, and to continue the process. Everything around it, money is spent so that, you know, go through Las Vegas. 50% of the billboards are for attorneys, divorce attorneys, family court attorneys. What are people doing in Vegas? What goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. Why are they advertising all these family law attorneys?
You know, it's interesting. You know, it's crazy because the military, the UCMJ, that's the Uniform Code of Military Justice, right? That's the laws that the military personnel live by. Yes, they have to obey the state laws and the federal laws, but while you are in service, while you're wearing that uniform, while you are enlisted in your contract, you are also held to another set of laws, which is the UCMJ. And article, I think, is 134. Is, you know, it talks about infidelity. So as a serviceman, it's actually against the law for you to commit adultery, for you to go step out. So you could actually get punished. You could lose rank, you could lose pay, you could even get kicked out of the service. Like your career could be destroyed for you having an affair. And so you would think that like our federal government or our state laws would at least have something in place, legally, to where if we're going to hold our servicemen to this standard, if there is a case like infidelity or cheating or whatever the case may be, to where the wife is leaving him, that there's some safeguards for him, because there's obviously safeguards for her. He will get punished for it. And it's sad that, like, again, there's so many guys that go overseas and go defend this country. And the one thing that keeps them fighting, the one thing that keeps them going out there when they're in the foxhole, is that I'm going home to my wife and kids. I'm going home to my family. That's the thing that drives them in some of the darkest times. And we have nobody that really respects that. And it's sad that the only people that respect that are the people actually fighting overseas for that. And it's not just military men that face this. Trust me. Like there's hundreds and thousands of men that have never been overseas, never served a day in this, for the military, that are facing the problems that the family court system has, plagued on men. And I find that really disgusting that, who makes the laws? Who has written these laws? Men. That's the sad thing. A lot of these laws that are biting and attacking and ruining men's lives were created by men. And there needs to be an uproar and a rise for men to actually speak up. And we have all kinds of, groups. You have the MRA, you have all these different, small packs of, men's rights groups and, people, protesting or talking about it, but there's not enough action. And, if we really want to honor our troops, we really want to honor our veterans, we should really take the time to figure out how we could actually take our words and make them into actions. The great thing about the Red Pill community, that it is a place for guys to recover. It is a place for guys to be able to find help for these problems. And it's sad that this is the only place that these guys can find, real advice and assistance and help to get through these tough times when they get home and their family's gone or their wife leaves them. It's a real tough time. It's really hard to see that this is the only place to do it, but I'm grateful that it's here, because although I wasn't in the service when I was divorced, I knew the alienation that I felt. And although I got injured when I was in the service, so I understand like how hard it is to adapt and to overcome some of the trauma and the things that you have experienced relating to the service that you can't share with anybody else. Most people don't understand what it's like to be a soldier or an airman or a seaman in battle or in war scenarios and having to come back. Not a lot of people could relate. You could watch Private Ryan, or you could watch, Lone Survivor, but that's only give you a glimpse of really what takes place in these guys' lives. And, overall, we could do something, and we're doing it now by making it aware. We're talking about it, but we really could do more. And whatever that more is, we got to figure it out as a collective group of men. And those are watching, men in the Red Pill space, we should really push to try to get this information out there to our men and women, or especially our servicemen overseas that might be going through something. Because as much as, I could say like finding this place really saved my life. Like I was one of those guys. I was a guy that was ready to put the gun to my head and do it itself after everything. And it was this space that really brought me back. And we could do that for our servicemen and women too, if we get this information now. And we need to really be spreading this stuff out, because look, what happens when our nation loses all its soldiers? What happens when our nation doesn't have any more heroes to go fight for us? We'll be overtaken.
Well, now wait a second. Let's not get so south, and let's bring a little bit of humor in here. We got lots of men that are women that'll be there, and women that'll be men.
Well, I mean, you know what?
But
there's a few that I know that would
that are
probably
women?
kick serious ass that could probably do it.
Men that are women,
Yeah,
or women that are men?
Dude, I know a few transgenders, like dudes that are converted to females that are football players.
Yeah.
Well, how did
Kid
they?
you not.
That's
They
great.
could
They
knock some
started
people
out
out.
with the equipment, right?
Hey,
No, but I think what you're saying, Glenn, is a really, really great point. Because like, God, we just need to care more. Like
Let me make
what the hell?
let me make a comment on caring, guys. It's happening. So what Glenn brings up is good. Glenn found this. Why did he? You guys ever try to red pill friends?
Oh, it's impossible.
I've tried and I've
doesn't
failed.
work. It doesn't work.
Here's
Not-
here's the biggest success that's out there right now. It cannot be denied. And the red pill is a jagged pill. It's a harsh truth because one of the big truths in there, they're going to look at Terrance Popp, they're going to look at everybody else and say, listen, sorry for what you went through, but guess what? You don't deserve shit. Nobody deserves shit. Nobody's coming to rescue you. Straighten your ass up. Rub the dust off of you. Take a deep breath. Rearm, refit, get back in action. That's the
No,
red
you're
pill.
right. That's exactly what I tell people to do
And-
now.
Yep. And Andrew Tate, his biggest audience, his fighting age men in the military. So hats off, Andrew. That's the way we reach them. And that's how you do it. It's pretty amazing. And it's just not fighting men here in the West. It's all over the world. And that's where you do it. And as far as the laws are concerned, you guys hear the Duluth model of domestic violence and family court equity that took place in the 80s. It happened right after our wonderful Ronald Reagan enacted into law. Well, he encouraged it, the no-fault divorce in the 70s when he was governor in California. So that's why you have this now. It's we're living in a post-marriage world. So guys will start to become aware of this. And
Oh yeah. And you know what the sad thing is that, and this is really sad, is that the way that the media spins this is the worst thing, if you ask me. It's, oh, he has mental health issues.
Yeah.
Everything that a guy does, if you know it that decides to take his life, you know, it's automatically assumed that he has mental health issues. And you know what? I'm not going to deny that at that moment he is struggling with some mental health issues. Absolutely. Okay, his world has just been ripped right out of his, you know, his heart.
Yep.
You know, everything that he thought was solid. The thing is, like, when these guys come back after fighting and they're serving their country, the one thing that they thought that they knew was for sure was at home.
Oh, of
And then
course.
when that is destroyed from them, because they are very romantic themselves. A lot of these guys fall for the, you know, the Disney-esque, you know, happy wife, happy life. I'm a hero. I'm a soldier. I'm the knight, right? I'm the hero. I defend people. You know, nobody's gonna want to, you know, just leave me. I'm good. I'm good. I'm what everybody wants. And when they realize that that story is not true, and that reality is a total lie, and the world comes down on them, it's so hard for these guys to really get out of that because they're already struggling with a lot of things. And you know, when we label it all mental health and we don't talk about all the contributing factors that could be affecting that individual's mental health, and I'm not just talking about, you know, his time in service or what he has witnessed overseas, but also a contributing factor that does play a lot into these guys' mental health is the family life and how the relationship is with their spouse and their family. And nobody wants to point the finger at, you know, women behavior at times. Nobody wants to highlight that.
It's interesting,
women
Glenn. And
behavior plays a role.
I don't mean to cut you off, but it's interesting how we protect the woman in today's society. So like you'll get alimony or get child support or anything like that. But we have nothing in place to protect these men who go overseas and then come back, and they come back to oh, I'm not happy anymore.
Yes. Yeah. I want to ask Glenn. Glenn, is there incentives in the military to be married? Is there allowances? Is there housing? Is there food? It's encouraged, correct?
Yeah. So all right. So a lot of young guys when they join the military, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, we're not making a whole lot. You know, for some of us, it's probably the biggest check we've ever seen, but we're not making a whole lot. And you know, your living quarters are in a dorm. You know, sometimes they're like run down, they're not up to code, or just like they're probably like the worst ghetto apartments at times that you've ever seen. And so what these guys do, they're like, oh well, if I get married, I get more pay because I have a spouse to take care of. So then you get an increase in your BAH, which is your basic allowance for housing, and you also get an increase in your BAS, which is your basic allowance for substance. So I mean, you get more money for food and more money for housing that you wouldn't get if you were living in the dorms. So yeah, a lot of these guys, they look at that as like, oh, this is where I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to make that little extra money. And so they either find their high school sweetheart or they find some, what we call a base hoe, a girl that's always around the military bars or always at the military functions. And, they'll wife them up thinking that they have found the one and get taken advantage of. And honestly, they don't really promote young guys getting together or with women in the military. They really try to push them not to get married. And I remember having a few conversations with my senior enlisted people that were always coaching like, hey, don't get married. Don't get married. It's not worth it. I had one master sergeant who was married 3 times. And he told us that like it was like the biggest like pause for everybody. He told us all the different stories from those 3 different wives and why he would never marry again as long as he's wearing a uniform. And it's crazy because he's literally been through it all. And luckily for him, he was, strong enough to deal with it. I think after the first 2 times, he probably learned like, oh, this is how it goes. But yeah, it's not encouraged, but they do, there is an incentive to get married if you're looking for the money aspect.
That's what I think is so crazy is that they provide these benefits for you to get married, but then the benefits of the divorce goes to the other side. So it's like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, and again, like this is how it is. And we can't cry about it because we're not able to do anything physically to change anything right now. But the one thing that we can change is how men, and especially our servicemen, are aware of female nature and what really could go on. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest help that we could actually do is continue to make content like this, and hope that one day a servicemen or women are out there that will be listening to this and be able to absorb the knowledge that we give them, and so that they could be protect themselves or be in the right mindset and understand how to navigate these relationships while they're in the uniform.
I just wanted to tee off on you real quick. It's interesting. One of the things you said is, I'm the hero. I'm the savior, right? And so that goes right along with the whole like Disney fantasy fairy tale wedding and all that stuff, right? It's this whole thing, the whole machine, right? I think that it's important for men to understand women 100%. Now, if you are in the military and you're watching this or you're thinking about signing up and you're a young guy, you're like 18, you're about to graduate high school and you come across our stuff, here, listen to me. Don't get married and get deployed. Don't do it. Because guys like dudes on this panel will be banging your girl. There it is. There's the hard friggin' truth, right? That's the hard truth. Glenn's laughing, but it's true, man.
Yep.
There is more tail in a military town where men are deployed from than anywhere else.
100%.
There's the
Let me
there's the
hop in
secret.
there real quick, Phil, because I gotta say, so I was also not only am I a veteran, my ex-wife she's in the Navy, right? And so when deployment would happen, now mind you, I was working and taking care of my kids, so I would see all these guys leave. They'll go out to sea, they'll go defend the country, and I kid you not, there was 3 prostitute rings that were going on in our base housing. What these women would do, they would change the light bulb outside on their porch to green or red. And if it was red, it means no go. If it was green, that means they were open for business. And these girls would literally pimp themselves out just fucking around. And I would
Are you serious?
Kid you not. There was 3 of them done in Bremerton, and like between the 2012 and like 2018. And then at the same time, when I'd be going out to the club, with my friends hanging out, I would see all these single or these base wives, what we call dependopotamuses. Those are, military wives. We would see all of them all of a sudden at the club, just shaking their ass, doing all crazy wild things while their guys are out overseas. And it's like, yo, it happens. So you're right, Phil. Like if you're in the military and you get married, a guy looking like one of us on this panel will not know that she's married, but we will bang your wife,
Dude,
without knowing.
It's disgustingly friggin' crazy because, here's the thing. And they always they creep out too, like, wherever the base is, they'll creep like 15, 20 miles out. Go to the local bars, man. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. I'm telling you, man. I'm laughing a little bit because I know that it's the truth. Okay. It is what it is. And so, you're gone and she's got that itch. What do you want her to do? You think she's going to be sitting home knitting, crocheting and things like that with her mom? No. And so I think men need to really understand that, especially veterans, to keep themselves out of situation, folks that are serving, to keep themselves out of situations is don't lock yourself down so young. Okay. You haven't built any value yet. You're just starting out in the military. So you could apply some theory to that, right? And just say, okay, I need to develop some value. I was with a girl last night and we were shooting some golf balls. And there's a light line on the ground. And I said, you see that line right there? I said, that's the finish line. I said, why don't you stand over there? And 200 yards over to the end of the fence, I was like, that's where men need to start to get to you. You just get to hang out. And that's what I want you guys to understand is it's important that you build your value early and quickly. Okay. Don't waste your time chasing chicks. Chase those checks, man. Build yourself.
Agreed.
That's where and I'm speaking from experience right here. That's where I messed up. I didn't chase the checks early enough. I chased the chicks. And so the more learn from me.
It's funny because like a young guy that goes in at 18 years old, by the time he gets out, he'll be right around his peak at 38. I mean, at 38, he's still young enough. He could have all the booty that he wants. All right. Like he's at his peak in, the SMV at the time. So, and same thing. When I was in, I wish I would have just, chased the check and, did that. But I was young, dumb, and full of cum. And well, not at the end of it because I always end up busting. Never mind. But I didn't have much come afterwards. Let's just say that. But no, seriously, like too many of us are too busy chasing tail. And the best thing that we could tell our young servicemen that are going in, like, look, go out there, serve this country. We're proud of you. Don't get married. Don't get married until you don't have to go anywhere for work.
Yeah. So Glenn, would that make us tail gunners then?
Yes.
If we chase the tail?
Yes.
Is that the military term? Tail gunners?
I haven't heard it in the military, but we can use it there.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
But with that, said, you guys, thank you guys again for joining us on this podcast episode, a very special Veterans Day. We may joke around about some of the stuff in here, but it's serious. We do really care about our men and women overseas and defend this country. And we really do care about the men that, come home to after facing life and death situations, coming home to an empty home and their world being torn apart. So our heart does go out to them. We really do wish these guys do get service or get help. The best thing that we could do is continue to make the content that we make, guys. We all do great at it. We're all, bringing out information and experiences and sharing that with the world. So, the guys on this panel, let's continue to do that because maybe one day that somebody would be watching this or, coming across this stuff and be running into you and be like, hey, are you that guy in that podcast? Dude, I want to tell you something. I've been listening to you and you saved my life, and that may or may not ever happen. But if it does, you would know that you just saved that one veteran's life. And that's the one way we could do it here. We could do our best doing that. So Thor, please take it away. Do your thing.
Glenn,
Captain.
thanks, man. You really add a great deal here. And thanks for the suggestion to do this. It's an honor to have you on the panel. Thank you for your service, man. You're a solid Drakkar here on the DragonShip. Thank you, guys. Happy Veterans Day. Go enjoy your families and know that us Americans do support you. Thank you.
Send us out.